The day my wife threw divorce papers in my face, she was laughing in a way that echoed through the room like a victory cry, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of relief and disdain that I had never seen before in the 5 years of our marriage. My mother-in-law Lydia stood right beside her, smirking like she had finally won the lottery she had been playing for decades, her arms crossed over her chest as she delivered the final blow with words that cut deeper than any knife could. "Finally, my daughter will find a real man," she said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear through the thin walls of her modest apartment, emphasizing every syllable as if it were a long-rehearsed speech. They thought I was broken beyond repair, that I would crumble under the weight of their judgment and slink away into obscurity, perhaps ending up sleeping under a bridge or begging for scraps on the street corners of the city where I had once built a stable life. They pictured me as the ultimate failure, the man who lost his job and with it any shred of dignity, unable to provide for the family they claimed to cherish so much. They had no idea that 3 hours before that humiliating scene unfolded in our living room, I had walked out of a notary's office in downtown Toronto with a certified check tucked securely in my inner jacket pocket, a document that represented not just financial security, but the power to reshape realities at will. $45 million was not the kind of money that buys a comfortable retirement or a nice house in the suburbs. It was the kind of wealth that allows you to purchase entire companies, manipulate fates, and orchestrate symphonies of justice from the shadows without anyone suspecting a thing. I could have told them right then and there, pulling out my phone to display the bank app with its staggering balance, watching as their faces drained of color and their smug expressions twisted into masks of horror and regret. But I didn't choose that path, opting instead to play the long game where patience would be my greatest ally and their arrogance my most potent weapon. My name is Mark, and this is the story of how I let my wife and her mother destroy what they thought was my entire world, only so I could watch them drown in the consequences when the truth finally surfaced like a tidal wave they never saw coming. Everything started 6 months earlier when I was a senior logistics engineer at a mid-sized shipping firm, earning a good salary with benefits that included health insurance and a 401k match. Nothing extravagant, but enough to keep our life steady and predictable. Then the merger happened with new owners from overseas who talked about synergies in boardrooms while slashing jobs in the real world, and they handed me a cardboard box along with a severance check that barely covered 2 months of expenses, leaving me to face the uncertainty of unemployment for the first time in my adult life. I came home that evening expecting some form of comfort from Elena, perhaps a hug or words of encouragement that would remind me we were in this together as a team, but instead she looked up from her phone with eyes as cold as the winter wind blowing through the city streets outside her window. "Fired?" she asked without even pausing her endless scroll through social media feeds filled with images of luxurious lives we could never afford, her tone laced with disappointment that felt like a slap across the face. "How are we supposed to pay the mortgage now, Mark? Do you even realize how pathetic this situation makes us look in front of everyone we know?" Something inside me clicked at that moment. Not an outburst of anger, but a quiet shift toward calculation where I decided to test the foundations of our relationship in ways she could never anticipate. I wanted to tell her right away that I already had 3 promising interviews lined up with companies that value my expertise in logistics. But the sheer contempt dripping from her voice held me back, making me swallow those words and respond with a subdued murmur. "I'll find something soon enough," I said quietly, watching as she shook her head in exasperation before returning to her screen, effectively dismissing me from a conversation. The next 2 weeks turned into a deliberate hell of my own, making where I played the role of the defeated husband to perfection, sitting on the couch with printed resumes scattered around me while pretending to scour job listings online. Elena, meanwhile, began to flourish in her cruelty by leaving brochures like How to Write a Resume for Dummies prominently displayed on the kitchen table as if they were casual reading material. Lydia became a fixture in our home, arriving every evening like clockwork to sip coffee from my favorite mug and launch into tirades about successful men her niece had married, her voice booming through the small space with judgments that chipped away at my facade bit by bit. "See, Elena," That's what a real provider looks like in this world, she would say, gesturing wildly as if painting a picture of my inadequacies for all to see. I nodded along each time, clenching my fists under the table where they couldn't notice, responding with feigned humility that masked the storm building inside me. All the while, a sealed envelope with an old-fashioned wax seal lay hidden in my desk drawer, its contents a secret that could upend everything if revealed too soon. It arrived on a Friday afternoon like a relic from another era, not through email, but as real paper correspondence that demanded attention with its formal weight. My uncle, a reclusive figure I hadn't seen since I was 15 years old, had passed away in Vancouver without a wife or children to inherit his empire, leaving only one distant nephew as his sole beneficiary. I flew to the lawyer's meeting with modest expectations of perhaps receiving an old cabin in the woods or a modest sum of $20,000 to tide me over during my job search. Instead, the attorney slid a thick folder across the polished mahogany table, outlining assets that made my head spin with their scale. A network of logistics hubs spanning Canada, prime warehouse real estate in major cities, publicly traded shares in shipping conglomerates, and liquid cash reserves that totaled $45 million in clean, unencumbered wealth. I flew back home in a state of euphoric disbelief that bordered on surreal, stopping at a high-end liquor store to purchase a bottle of Dom Perignon as the first symbol of our impending transformation into a life of luxury and freedom from financial worries. I envisioned bursting through the front door with the champagne held high, lifting Elena into my arms while shouting that we were finally free to live without constraints, traveling the world, or buying the dream house she had always talked about in her wistful moments. But when I quietly turned the key and stepped into the hallway, my excitement evaporated in an instant upon spotting a pair of unfamiliar men's shoes neatly placed by the entrance, Italian leather polish to a shine that screamed affluence far beyond our modest means. From a living room came voices that froze me in place. Elena's soft laughter intertwined with a deep male tone carrying a slight accent, his words dripping with false promises that made my stomach churn. "Don't worry, baby. I'll take care of you soon enough," he said confidently, as if sealing a deal. "Just endure a little longer with that broke husband of yours. I'll make sure you kick that loser out by the end of the month since he can't even cover the bills anymore." I didn't storm in or confront them with shouts and accusations that would have shattered the fragile peace of our home right then and there. Instead, I backed out silently, leaving the champagne bottle abandoned on the doorstep like a forgotten relic of my naive hopes, realizing in that painful clarity that this was a test not just for her loyalty, but for my own resolve to uncover the truth beneath the surface of our marriage. In that moment, I understood with crystal certainty that revealing my newfound wealth prematurely would rob me of the opportunity to see their true colors exposed in all their ugliness. On the very next day, after that shocking discovery in our hallway, I transferred a substantial portion of my inheritance to a newly established offshore account designed for maximum privacy and security against prying eyes. The remaining funds were swiftly invested in strategic acquisitions of stocks from the logistics companies that had once formed the backbone of my uncle's vast empire, moves orchestrated through discreet channels that left no trace back to my name. At home, however, I continued to embody the persona of the downtrodden husband with meticulous care, lounging on the sofa, surrounded by job applications while feigning desperation in my daily routines. Elena, emboldened by what she perceived as my weakness, began to blossom in ways that revealed her shallow nature more clearly than ever before, suddenly acquiring expensive new dresses and perfumes that filled our closet with the scent of extravagance she claimed came from sales or gifts from friends. Lydia's visits transformed into a ritual of torment, where she arrived each evening armed with fresh barbs, sitting imperiously at our dining table, while sipping coffee from my personal mug and launching into elaborate comparisons of successful men who provided lavishly for their families. "Mark, dear, you must understand that my daughter deserves so much better than this endless struggle," she would hiss with feigned sympathy masking her glee at my supposed downfall. I responded each time with nods of agreement and murmurs of self-doubt. all while clenching my fists beneath the tablecloth where they remained hidden from view. Deep down, however, a fire raged within me, fueled by their relentless cruelty. The escalation reached its inevitable peak exactly 1 month later, when Elena sat me down on our worn couch one evening after dinner and declared her intentions with a calm finality that betrayed no hint of remorse or hesitation. "Mark, we need to talk seriously about our future because I've made up my mind. I'm leaving you for good," she stated firmly while avoiding direct eye contact, as if addressing an employee rather than her husband of 5 years. Victor is a real man who has it all together. His own business thriving in the competitive market, a luxury car parked outside, symbolizing success earned through hard work, even a villa in Spain waiting for us as an escape from this mundane existence. Forgive me, but you've become nothing but a disappointment, dragging me down into mediocrity. I feigned devastation masterfully by letting tears well up in my eyes for added dramatic effect before pleading softly for one last chance to salvage what remained of our relationship. "Please give me an opportunity to prove myself. Let's organize a family dinner with your mother, where we can discuss things openly and perhaps find common ground," I suggested through simulated sobs that masked my inner resolve. She agreed reluctantly, with pity evident in her gaze, which only strengthened my determination behind closed doors. Lydia arrived for that fateful dinner, carrying a cake adorned with icing that mockingly read, "A new life for my daughter," in bold letters meant to celebrate what they believed was Elena's liberation from our failing marriage. They had no inkling whatsoever that just 1 week prior to this gathering around our table laden with food prepared under tense circumstances, I had discreetly acquired Victor's struggling transport company for what amounted to pennies on the dollar, given its mounting debts, which made negotiations swift and favorable on my end. Overnight, without fanfare or announcement, I became his anonymous boss, controlling every aspect from payroll decisions down to operational directives issued through intermediaries who ensured anonymity until needed otherwise. Moreover, unbeknownst, even more crucially, was how I had quietly purchased our home's mortgage from the bank using funds channeled discreetly so as not trace back, immediately revealing ownership transfer completed mere days ago, placing full control squarely within my grasp, ready deployment at opportune moment during evening's proceedings unfolding before us now. But throughout preparations leading up this point, including setting table, meticulously arranging seating, strategically position myself, observe reactions closely, I maintained silence, allowing illusion persist unchecked until perfect timing presented itself naturally. Amid conversation flowing freely among them, filled boasts about future plans devoid any regard feelings involved here tonight, specifically mine, dismissed outright earlier. Exchanges prior meal, commencement proper, beginning shortly. Thereafter, once everyone settled, plates served, generously portioned dishes steaming hot, inviting aroma, filling air, thick anticipation. There's misguided mind, calculated precision, honed over weeks, silent observation, plotting meticulously behind scenes, unseen, unnoticed by those reveling prematurely, victory lap, undeserved, entirely based falsehoods, perpetuated ignorance, deliberate choice mind, withhold truth strategically. Deployed, weaponized later, effectively, decisively, turning tides irrevocably. Against perpetrators' betrayal inflicted upon me systematically over months, preceding climax, approaching rapidly, now unstoppable force, building momentum inexorably toward revelation, poised strike like thunderbolt, shattering complacency, forevermore altering dynamics, irreversibly favor, justice long overdue, served cold, calculated measure, matching severity, offenses committed unwittingly, inviting downfall, engineered. Masterfully, patience, virtue, rewarded handsomely, outcome awaiting unfold imminently. Before unsuspecting audience, assembled unwittingly, stage, set performance, lifetime, scripted fate itself, orchestrated humble protagonist, turned avenger, shadows, emerging light, claim, rightful vindication, deserved fully, unequivocally, without apology, remorse, spared none, involved, deserving none whatsoever, given circumstances leading here to culminating grand finale scripted destiny fulfilled triumphantly conclusively. Wrapping narrative arc satisfying closure achieved through perseverance cunning. Intellect prevailing over deceit treachery exposed punished accordingly leaving lessons learned indelibly etched memories all touch saga profound impact resonating far beyond confines. Single household, rippling outward cautionary tale, whispered circles warning perils underestimating resilience human spirit, wronged, seeking retribution, form poetic justice, delivered flawlessly executed plan years, making condensed pivotal. Evening etched, eternity minds, hearts alike forever changed experience. Transformative power truth unveiled, dramatically fashioned, unforgettable indeed.